This week, the United States Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Western Hemisphere, Daniel Erikson, visited Guyana. It was his first overseas visit for 2024, and he met with a number of government officials, including President Dr. Irfaan Ali and Prime Minister Brigadier Retired Mark Phillips. He also met with a number of security officials, including the Chief of Staff of the Guyana Defence Force, Brigadier Omar Khan. So why exactly did Mr. Erikson come to Guyana? Well, based on information released by the Office of the President here in Georgetown, Mr. Erikson held wide-ranging discussions with President Ali and members of the government. Those discussions focused on improving security here in Guyana. And it also focused on how bilateral ties, particularly in the area of defense between Guyana and the U.S., could be improved. Now, in an interview with the Department of Public Information, following his engagement with government officials, Mr. Erikson spoke a bit more about the U.S.'s focus here in Guyana. Now, according to him, his department is focused on ensuring that there is strong defense collaboration between the Guyana Defence Force and U.S. military. In his interview with the Department of Public Information, there were three main points that Mr. Erikson made, at least in relation to defense. The first is, he made it clear that the United States is interested in having this hemisphere remain a zone of peace. Now, that's particularly important because Guyana and other nations within this hemisphere have all said that this area must remain a zone of peace, particularly in light of aggressions from Venezuela that heightened at the end of last year. Secondly, Mr. Erikson pointed out that the U.S. has an interest in guaranteeing that Guyana is able to respond better to cyber threats. The U.S. is working with Guyana and other nations within this region to ensure that their cybersecurity efforts are bolstered. And finally, he spoke generally about the U.S. wanting to bolster the capability of the Guyana Defence Force to respond to anything that it needs to. This is also important because the government of Guyana has been focused on building Guyana's defensive capability. That includes improving the human resources available, but also investing in assets that would be needed as Guyana tries to improve its defensive capabilities. Outside of his meetings with government and Guyanese security officials, Mr. Erikson also engaged with the Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, Dr. Carla Barnett, at the CARICOM headquarters in Turkey in Georgetown. According to a release from CARICOM, Mr. Erikson and Dr. Barnett also spoke about defense in the region and the U.S.'s support for bolstering defense capabilities in the region, but their discussions also included talks on climate change. Reporting for the newsroom, Vishani Raghavir.